Introduction. Mysore's racetrack surprised me in a city of such traditional sensibilities. It was luxurious and lush in a slightly decaying end of the Raj sort of way. The white paint of the grandstand was peeling, and the track surface rarely mowed. The grass seemed tall enough for tiger hunting. A ghostly feel pervaded the place when Ronnie and I arrived one early afternoon in mid September 1997. Ronnie told me that the racetrack doubled as a golf course, which gave the place an eerie, almost surreal feel despite its ripe beauty. Mysore was renowned for its Hindu crafts, sandalwood carvings of gods and animals, and for the nearby Shankaracharya monastery. The temples on top of Chamundi Hill, the huge Nandi bull, the centers of Sanskrit learning and yoga, the Hoysala temples, and the Lalita Mahala palace. I did not expect a racetrack, let alone the 18-hole golf course that surrounds it, with its last 6 holes actually inside the track. We found the clubhouse nestled under a canopy of huge tamarind and babul trees, bright with clusters of yellow flowers just west of the grandstand. Ronnie insisted on playing every Indian golf course he could find and had inflicted deep humiliation on himself while trying to conquer India's eccentric links. This one, too, was lying in wait for the Sanskrit scholar. The trees and fairways were fine, but the greens were not. They were not green at all, more like brown or soiled white. A layer of sand covered the hard ground around the flags marking the holes. Players had to putt on a surface where the ball actually left a track and might suddenly stop dead, burrowing into a softer patch of sand. My friend, who relished such strange challenges, booked a round which included a caddy and a spotter, a young boy who would chase the drives and chips and locate every ball, even those that ended up in the waist-high rough. The sun was just past mid-sky, and it was still hot, though a slight breeze was blowing from the direction of Chamundi Hill through the tall thickets of reeds in the wetlands. The area was deathly still. Even the crows made no sound at this time of day, and no other golfer was in sight. I knew Ronnie would take his time, savoring his peaceful obsession unpressed by other players. He asked if I minded giving him the afternoon to play and suggested I explore the area near Chamundi Hill. We were not there as tourists. I was recovering from severe illness, sunstroke, and food poisoning, which I contracted while working as a biologist in Varanasi. Mysore was renowned for its clinics of Ayurveda with their traditional Hindu healing practices. But as Ronnie put it, the papayas alone would cure me. "Let me take you down there," he had said. "It'll bring you back to reality." I spent days on the clinic's shady veranda, killing time by watching crows taunt a hawk in the heat of day and butterflies struggle to top a huge coconut tree covered with pink and purple bougainvillea. I loved India during these afternoons and hated it. My mind was pulled up toward the sky and its promises, but my stomach and muscles kept me stuck in a queasy, swampy place below. After 2 weeks of treatment, I finally felt strong enough to join Ronnie, who never remained stationary for long. I took off in the direction of Chamundi Hill. The narrow asphalt road on which we had arrived by motor rickshaw ran from the racetrack toward the wetlands and the dense vegetation beneath the hill. I wanted to observe wildlife or just enjoy the semi-tropical flora in the half mile between the track and the hill. I hadn't felt this strong in weeks, and I began jogging along the road, then veered off into the marsh behind the third fairway left by the monsoons. I felt a sudden urge to test my stamina against the hill. Either that, or perhaps the shimmering vegetation drew me to it. The gently sloping 4,000-foot hill with its light brown outcrops of granite boulders reminded me of the pictures I had seen of the mystical Mount Carmel, or a Greek mountain with a temple on top, a miniature Mount Olympus. I jogged slowly on a footpath that threaded between the high reeds of the marsh, dark green water covered with slime and teased by darting insects chilled the breeze as I moved easily. Every now and then the path dissolved into the muck, but I kept going. By the time I emerged at the other end of the marsh, just under the hill, my running shoes were soaked and muddy. Breathing hard, I sat on the step of a small booth, shadowed by a huge peepal tree, and slowly removed my shoes and socks. It was a devotional spot. I could see that right away, and therefore hospitably cool despite the hot summer sun. Several sacred trees, peepals mostly, spread an immense canopy over the area. Hundreds of pilgrims could fit in that space. Durga Puja, the sacred fall festival for the goddess Durga, must be a riot here, but I was completely alone with a few dozing monkeys. A ceremonial gate led the eye in a stone path, then to 4 steps made of basalt slab, on which pilgrims had smeared vermilion dye in the manner of offerings to a god or a goddess. From there, the path led between several small booths, like the one I was resting in, and up the northern face of the mountain. Past the shadowed area of the lower steps, the path glistened in the heat. I began to breathe more easily and felt my strength returning. The steps beckoned. I decided to carry my shoes in hand and climb as far as it took until they dried, just like a pilgrim. I turned round just as the old man came out from behind a booth. He was bony and dark, with thick white hair sticking out from under a black woolen ski cap. His brown polyester trousers and green knitted vest over a white shirt defied the heat of the day. He carried a long walking cane, a bag was suspended over one shoulder, and he was smiling broadly as he pointed at my feet. "You are going up Chamundi with bare feet. Are you a seeker? Do you bear a gift of penance for Mahadeva or his beloved Chamundi?" His English was perfect. I found that rather common in Mysore and throughout South India. But he had startled me, so I remained silent for a few minutes, which he took as an invitation to introduce himself. P.K. Shivaram, retired librarian for KPTC, that's Karnataka Power Thermal Corporation Limited. Namaskar, he said with hands pressed together in a greeting. "How do you do? I don't think it's a very good idea, my friend. Perhaps today you should make do with an offering of marigolds or just devotion. Your feet," he pointed, "are too soft. Look at mine." He kicked off his cheap rubber thongs. His feet seemed huge for such a small man, flat and cracked and bony like old oars. "Our Shiva is not Jesus, of course, but he will accept even your sweat as a sign of love. Don't kill yourself, young man." As he talked in his unhurried way, I began to think how silly it would be to tell him that I was merely drying my sneakers, now tied around my neck. It may be dumb to attempt a barefoot climb up Chamundi Hill, but it was more embarrassing to imitate such devout behavior while acting as a porter for wet shoes. So I shrugged and asked if there was any harm in starting up the hill barefoot and then putting on my shoes when my feet began to hurt. "No harm at all, my friend. Do what you can. I'll tell you what," he added. "I'm going up myself. I do every Thursday. Of course, I take the bus down. Would you mind if I joined you, young man?" He did not pause for my answer. "I shall walk beside you if you walk slowly. I am 67 years old, you know. Can't go charging up the way I used to when I was your age. But I hope not to slow you down too much. He was definitely a talker. The words flowed out of his mouth effortlessly, each one chained to the next, and inexorably pulling it out. I felt impatient with this chatter and afraid he would slow me down, or worse, discover that I had lied to him about my intentions. But then he surprised me. As long as you walk with me, your feet will not hurt. I promise you that. I was already at the first step. The stone was warm, even in the shade, and I could feel its rough texture under my soles. What do you mean? How can you possibly prevent my feet from hurting? Stories, my friend. I shall tell you pilgrimage stories. We have a tradition here. We tell each other stories as we climb up the steps. There are 1001 steps, just like the number of Shiva's names. We walk up the mountain telling stories, and the stories have the same spiritual merit as the hardship of walking barefoot up the mountain, or fasting, or chanting the names of Shiva. Some enjoy telling stories because it's an art, while others prefer to listen because of the pleasure that makes them forget the pain. If you pay attention, he paused and added in a conspiring voice, the stories might turn you into a true pilgrim and give you pleasure at the same time. Let me tell you a story, and we shall see how your feet feel. I was at the ninth or tenth step, and already the skin of my feet was softening to the rock and warming to the red soil that the rains had washed off the mountain onto the path. Pleasantness would soon give way to discomfort and then to pain, and the old man was insinuating that he could see me through this. Clearly, the retired librarian was going to either embarrass me or drive me crazy. Before leaving, before putting my shoes back on and running away, I decided to give it a shot. Yes, I'd love to hear a story. Is it about Shiva or Chamundi Hill? No, not at all. It is about pain and about the trials of leading a good life while trying to stay healthy.